It's this weird thing that when you take trainings at different places on the same topic, you start to be able to discern what is ego, like what is this teacher saying this is the way to teach,
right,
versus what's the lesson.
Hello. Welcome to Infinite Multiverse Podcast. I'm Grecia Salamon Rous, and I am so thrilled to be having this amazing woman right next to me, my beautiful friend and one of the most inspiring women I have ever met, and she's Dani Carroll. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm equally excited to be here.
Yes.
Like just having this experience of getting to talk with someone I absolutely love and admire in just a real authentic setting is just always so exciting.
I've been really looking forward to this conversation. Even besides podcasts and cameras and everything, every time we meet, we talk so much. And to be honest, like I don't think an hour is enough for everything that you do. It's insane. I don't know how you do it all.
We can bucket it. We'll find a topic, maybe two, and we'll stick with that. And then we'll just have to have a part two or part three.
No, we'll need different parts. Second season, third season, there's always going to be an episode with Dani here.
I'm done. Ready.
And I'm sure everybody will feel the same way after they listen to you. And let's start with the basics, which is how we met. And I think it's just such a very important thing to me, just that experience, because we met when you were teaching yoga at Equinox. That's a past phase for you.
Yes. That chapter was a beautiful one. And I'm so grateful for the entire experience that brought me there. But it's bittersweet when chapters close.
I know.
What's great about it is the relationships it brought me, the people that it brought into my life, because that can continue on past the W-9, past the working there experience. So I'm so grateful for the 12 years that I had it.
12 years.
12 years.
That's a long time.
Well,
it seems like it had to come to an end at some point where it felt right to you.
Exactly. It's kind of like sending your kids off to school. Like eventually they have to leave. And you don't want your children, I always want them around me, but you want them to have their next experience in life, that independent experience. And there comes a time where you just have to say this, it's now. Like, this is it.
This is the moment. The moment is now.
And it's funny too, because a lot of people, when I left, got a lot of calls, a lot of text message, a lot of curiosity. Why'd you leave? Why'd you leave? And it's kind of like asking a cat when it's done taking a nap. Like, why now? It's like, no, it's done.
It was time, No, I remember not seeing you in the schedule. And I was like, what is going on? Like, this is like why I go to Equinox. It's Dani. Like, this is why I pay for Equinox. So like, you're taking the most special part. And I mean, I'm bringing this up because I've been doing yoga for a long time. I started when I was 17, and I started my journey with Ashtanga yoga, and I had a very committed teacher. Like, we were doing the full 2.5 hours, like 3 times a week. Like, and I was young. I knew I liked it, but I wasn't very, as knowledgeable as I can be right now. So fast forward to, me doing yoga in so many different ways, but then I get to your class, and it was the first class. Everything I felt in that class, because it's beyond the physicality. It took me beyond whatever you were doing physically. Like, I remember crying in poses. And just being like, what is going on? This is just plank.
I know. I've had probably a few thousand experiences of holding people through tears. Sometimes it's a physical hold of hands on bodies, and other times it's just an emotional hold of being present. And what I love about the way I've developed my teaching style is it allows people to feel what they need to feel. They can feel angry. that I put them in a plank and I won't tell them when it's done. They can feel sorrow or grief or joy or ecstasy. I've had those experiences in my classes too. And what my philosophy on teaching is I'm not actually the teacher. I'm a tour guide. You're teaching yourself. I'm guiding you through the experience, but you're going to learn more from yourself and how you interact with that. But what most people are missing is the language or the tools. They're feeling something, but they don't know how to process it.
And look, there is a lot of other instructors that they kind of open the space for you, whatever you need. And that's kind of like the speech, right? Whatever you need to feel in this moment, feel it. But there is no, and I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about like the person that's receiving the class. There's still this resistance towards feeling. So I don't know how you do it. Probably you can explain that to me right now, because I've learned so much. And I remember, like, when I met you, I hadn't even done my Kundalini teacher training. Actually, I never thought I was going to do any kind of training for yoga. But I knew that if I was going to teach like somebody, it was going to be like you. It's like that's just the emotion that I would want people to feel, like feel so safe in this space. But also, the class is structured in a way. You know, the way you're talking, the music, how it plays a role, the way you make it like rhythmic in a way. And suddenly all of these emotions start happening. It's like, I honestly, it's only been in your class. And through your classes, you've also shared like, well, I used to be this person and I used to smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And I can't see that Dani anymore. How was that change for you? Like, where were you coming from? And how do you get to the Dani Carroll that I met?
It's interesting because the two parts of the conversation are combined. They're aligned. And so before yoga, so I'll tell you the brief story of how I got involved in yoga, because it was never what I was supposed to be doing. You know, I was an art history major and then a cultural anthropology major. And then I changed my major so much. I was always looking for something. But what carried through continuously was my love of knowledge. I wanted to learn as much as I could. So part of how I teach now is all of the things that I learned along the way. So changing my major 4 times had a direct impact on how I teach now.
Interesting.
So I was working at a market research company in Huntington Beach, and I was 200 pounds, pack-a-day smoker. I always joke and say that Taco Bell was a food group. Like that was how I existed. Like, which fast food place am I going to next? And I was living, but more in a level of existence. Like I was existing.
Survival.
Not even survival. I was dehydrated. I wasn't spiritually active. And there was no deeper meaning of, well, here I am. Like,
there was no purpose or meaning to. You were just like alive.
I was alive. I was just going through. And that's how most people I find are conditioned to exist, because a lot of the topics that I talk about in my classes aren't openly talked about. It's kind of a little taboo, or it's uncomfortable for people. And so what happened was I'm working at this place, and one of my coworkers would go to this yoga studio across the street, and there was a bet going along amongst 4 or 5 of the other coworkers that had gone with her to yoga before of who can get Dani to go.
Okay. That is so crazy.
And I was the receptionist, so I'm just working there. They all have big people jobs, and they work on their desks and go to meetings and all this. And I was young. I was, I think, 22 at the time. And one day my defenses were down, and I was like, sure. I remember walking across the street, smoking a cigarette on my way to yoga, which is so funny to me now.
And a cigarette is just unbelievable.
It's such a past life experience for me. But what was interesting was she didn't tell me that it was 90 minutes, not an hour. It was a 90-minute class. She didn't tell me it was heated. And she didn't tell me she got $5 for getting me to go.
Wow.
So that was how I got into the door. And I remember walking in these sweats with my hood over my head. It was almost like I was hiding from myself.
Yeah.
And so I walk in, I sit in the back by the door because that's where the people said, like, oh, you're new and you're wearing that. Like, sit by the door. That's where it's going to be coolest. I'm sitting there dying. Like, it is hot. It's uncomfortable. I can't breathe. I'm wondering why the heck I'm there. And the teacher opens the door, and there's this big burst of cool breeze. And I'm like, oh, I'm saved. Thank God.
I will survive this class.
I will survive. I'm okay. But I remember her walking in, and I'm very clumsy on land. I'm great in the water. I am clumsy on land. And this woman walked in and floated across the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my mouth physically dropped open because I had never seen such physical grace in someone before. And I just remember looking at her going, I want what she has.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I don't know how to get it. I don't know where to get it, but I want what she has.
Mm-hmm.
And I survived my first yoga class, and they offered you a free week if you went. So I went the next day. And I went the next day.
Look at you.
I'm one of those obsessive people.
Oh, but also for that time in your life when you were not doing any of this.
No, nothing.
It took a lot from you to be able to go every day.
Yeah, it was one of those things that prior to this experience, I had a lot of hurt and a lot of pain, and my family was experiencing a lot of pain. I had gone to a rehabilitation center because I didn't know how to deal with life. And so I turned, as most people do, to the things that evoke a feeling.
Yeah.
And so the feeling I was looking for was anything other than sadness, fear, regret, and grief, because that's what I was feeling. So drugs, alcohol, and dangerous people give you the exact opposite of that feeling.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, is I turned
gives you the opposite.
It gives you the temporary feeling of what
you're evading those emotions
exactly.
at the end of the day.
So luckily I have two of the most amazing parents in the entire world, and they saw what was happening very quickly. And I wasn't given a choice. It was, we don't care that you're 18, 19 years old. You're going to this facility. You're going to do this. And I remember being really pissed off. The experience of getting there was incredibly traumatic for my family and myself. But I remember once I was there, it was this feeling of like a feral cat put in a cage. Like, I wanted to escape so badly, but I also knew I was going to get a lot of love out of this. And it was going to open
There was a
doors.
part of you that knew, I need this right now.
Because there's, just like when you're doing drugs, there's a part of you that knows you don't want that.
Yeah.
You want something else, but this is the only way you can find it in that moment. And so I knew that this was a moment in my life that was going to change the conversation. And so I had gone through that experience, and a year later, there I am sitting at my desk working this job. Someone offers me this opportunity to do something new. Might as well. I've tried everything else. Might as well try this and just see what it's like. Going back repeatedly showed me what I was capable of. And by the end of the week, when my free week was up, I remember after class, I wouldn't smoke a cigarette for a long time. And so I didn't consciously know something was changing, but I knew I felt a lack of necessity to have that stimulus. And so I remember going to the manager and saying, look, I cannot afford to be here, but I need to be here. And so they let me clean the toilets and clean the shower. And so that's what I did, is I ended up cleaning in trade for a membership. And 6 months go by. I'm going every single day. I've enrolled in their nutrition program. Now I'm inspired to change my major to nutrition. So that happens again, another major switch. Sorry, mom and dad, for all of that. And the teacher comes to me and says, you need to do teacher training. Like, you
did it here? Your teacher training was here?
I'm obsessive. Okay, so I have that personality. My first teacher training was here. My second teacher training was here. My third teacher training was here. My fourth teacher training was here. But my fifth...
Now we know how you teach like this. Thank you for answering. Now, that's the bottom of the question right there.
There it is. So I went through my 200-hour teacher training 4 separate times.
Okay.
And then I went to India.
Yes.
And that's really where my education for how I teach now changed.
When you mentioned at some point that you went to India to study,
Yeah.
that's been in my bucket list for a very long time.
I love it.
I just feel called to it.
When are you going to take it off the list?
When I can leave the country safely.
There it is. That part. Okay. There it is.
There is a lot of other intricacies.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
Just like behind doors that, being immigrant and different things. And of course, being in survival mode for so long, like, you're saying, also making sure that I can leave what I have. It's just, it's a whole deal.
100%.
But, I feel very called to India. And when we talk about any kind of yoga, but when you talk about Kundalini specifically, it's very from that culture. Yeah. And I remember you saying that, and I was like, oh, this woman's yes. But it's just like, I'm sure the culture was a total change for you.
It's sometimes you have to get lost to find yourself.
Yeah.
And when I started studying more about the human brain, what I found was the majority of our decisions aren't actually decisions. They're just habit. It's just the routine that we're used to. So by traveling to India, I was so put out beyond any routine. Yes. I don't speak the language. I don't recognize any of the streets. I don't know the food. Honestly, the most pivotal moment in India was not in the yoga studio. It was learning how to cross the street.
No way.
It is the scariest freaking thing in the world when you're crossing the street in India for the first time, because there's no lanes.
Yeah.
There's people, there's cars, there's trucks, there's tuk-tuks, there's cows, there's monkeys, there's all this stuff happening at once. And so I remember, like, you have to be present to cross the street. And that was on my second day. So my first day was walking down to the street, and then I walked back. And that was as far as I went. My second day, I was like, that was my big thing. Like, I'm going to cross the street. And sometimes with big goals, especially with where I was mentally at that time, what a lot of people don't know is the reason I went to India was I was having 14 panic attacks a day.
14 is a lot.
They were debilitating. And I was teaching yoga while having these panic attacks. So I was dealing with imposter syndrome. Who am I to help people when I'm having so much pain? And I'm dealing with lack of confidence. I'm dealing with grief. I'm dealing with all these unprocessed emotions. I'm newly married when this happens. My husband and I had been in a relationship for 12 years, just got married. And I go to him and I say, I need to leave.
Yeah.
And it takes the strongest man in the world to say,
go.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hope that when you come back, we're still going to be together. And he knew I needed to transform, and he was so strong that he was willing to let me do it. He loved me so much, he was willing to risk losing me.
Yeah.
And I remember when I went to India, I was having all these panic attacks. And the first day, my goal there was to have this existential experience, to heal, to figure out my life's purpose, all these things. But sometimes when you have these big goals, the only way to make them happen is to break them up.
Yeah.
And some people
it doesn't feel that impossible anymore.
Exactly.
Now you have something more tangible.
Yeah. So getting to the street was a tangible thing. I did it. Check, done. I know how to get there now.
And it feels so basic.
Yeah.
But it's not. It wasn't for you.
So many layers to that. And so the second day it was, I'm going to cross the street. Now, what I forgot about is once you cross, you have to get back. So it's really crossing.
To cross again.
It's crossing the street twice. But I remember crossing the street was so cool because once you're across the street, you're actually in the town. And that's when I got to have the experience and meet people and see things and cross the bridge and see the ashrams and have the I call them drive-by blessings, where people are walking around town and they say, oh, white woman, like, come here, I'm going to wrap something and then you owe me like $1.
I see.
So I call them drive-by blessings, where welcome to India, we're going to bless you. But it's so fast and you don't realize what's happening until after. And so that's when the experience really started. And that was the day before my training started. And so part of how I'm able to teach the way I'm able to teach is changed my major so many times. So I've studied a really broad range of topics, from art to anthropology to psychology to nutrition. And I've taken
Well, what a beautiful holistic mix for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense that all of that carry you to this point where you're using all of them.
Exactly. And every teacher training I did, I went with just the hope of learning. It wasn't to be the best teacher. It wasn't to make $1 million. It was, I want to learn this and really get good at this. I don't know where it's taking me. And by taking trainings at different places, you learn different philosophies. And you start to realize none of them are the same.
Yeah.
But none of them are different.
It's
this weird thing that when you take trainings at different places on the same topic, you start to be able to discern what is ego, like what is this teacher saying this is the way to teach, versus what's the lesson. Because the lesson will be true, whether it's Kundalini, Ashtanga, Vinyasa, Hatha. The lesson is the lesson.
Absolutely.
But how you deliver the lesson, that's ego. That's just
and
the
you
teacher.
can see it in so many different ways. Like I see it even in a DJ. Like it's like that, you know, when I'm able to realize like I'm somewhere and I'm just like, there's just so much ego in that person. You're not really connecting with the music. You're not connecting to the audience. You're not even connected to yourself. You're just there because you want to clap. And it's just like, I am not feeling connected.
And it's funny because ego kind of gets a bad rap. And it's funny because it's just a word that was invented by a man. That's all ego is. It was a word that was invented to describe something that previously didn't have a definition.
Yeah.
And it's kind of been used against people of, oh, you have a big ego, or, oh, they don't have an ego, I like them, whatever it is. What I've learned in my short time on this planet is ego is just a way of keeping yourself safe. And when your ego...
It's your brain mechanism.
Yeah. And so when ego is walking in front of you, you think you're better than everyone. You think you're doing things for self-serving, like the DJ looking for the clap, you know, or the teacher looking for the room to be full.
Yes.
When ego walks behind you, you feel less than. I'm not good enough. Why would anyone listen to me? No one's going to show up. It's that self-preservation ego. But when you walk side by side, when ego and you hold hands, it's like, I know you're going to keep me safe and I know you're going to lift me up, but we're going to walk side by side and have this relationship. That's when it serves you the best. So when I teach, I always come from the point of the lesson that I'm delivering in class is usually the one that I need. So when people go, oh my gosh, you touched me, it's like, I touched myself with this one. I really needed this. I'm relearning it, because the best way to learn something is to teach it. So as I'm teaching the class, I'm teaching myself. They're going through their own experience. I'm having my own experience. I have no attachment to what their experience is.
And that's very important, by the way, to be the teacher, because there's so much attachment from being the person that is carrying the room. And then it's happened to me now that I started teaching.
Yeah.
It's horrible. Because I just feel this big responsibility of, well, I need to make them feel something. But that's where you miss the point.
When you detach from it being your job to have other people have an experience, you can actually teach from the heart.
Yes.
And when you teach from the heart, people get these downloads. They're able to hear themselves, because yoga is about them working through their connection to everyone, everything, and themselves. It's not about me facilitating that, because otherwise they become attached to me.
Right.
I can't go home with them.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And also, like you're also, again, missing the point, even if you are going to a class because you're attached to someone. I had to learn detachment when you left Equinox.
A lot of people did.
I had to learn that. I was like, what am I going to do now?
People would text me and say, where are you now? And I'm like, I'm not ready to share that.
Yeah.
When the time is right, because that's also the lesson for them, that just because you've had a teacher for so long, like with all my life coaching clients, I'm very upfront that my goal with them is for them to detach from me. I do not want my clients to be 10 years doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
I'm not doing my job.
Yeah.
If that's the case.
Yeah.
So with yoga as well, it's sometimes they need a drastic physiological shock of my teacher isn't here to learn the next lesson.
But it was also such a beautiful opportunity because my mind is stuck in Tuesdays at this time. This is what I do.
Yes.
And, I think I texted you. I can't remember. I think
you did.
Oh, so you're not teaching, like something like that.
Your schedule changed.
And then,
and I was like, yes, it did.
And then it's like, and then you just told me like, okay, I'm not teaching there. And it was like the understanding of like, how beautiful, she's closing a chapter.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else to say. Just wish you the best for whatever else is coming. But it was like this, okay, what am I going to do now on Tuesdays at 9:45 a.m.?
Exactly.
But then you get to explore other things. So at the end, it's an opportunity.
Exactly.
It's always going to be an opportunity.
100%.
And you are growing. And that's what I want for you too.
Exactly.
Like it should be a back and forth. I want that for you. Like I don't want you to be teaching, as a friend, for 100 years. Like go out there, explore, do different things. And when you told me I'm just closing this chapter, I was like, like moving on to better things that are just more aligned with you right now.
Exactly.
But just that experience right there is an opportunity to like, now I love my Tuesday class. It's completely different. It's not yoga.
Yes.
But I love it. And it's just like, okay, because I need to pivot. And I think there's a lesson there. Yeah. Life will always throw things at you where you have to be constantly pivoting, and detachment is part of that. Let's make this official. Become part of this community. If you feel called to it, hit the subscribe button, like, and share with someone you love. And feel free to leave any comments, questions, or suggestions below. Y si estás viendo en otro idioma, te invito a activar los subtítulos para que no te pierdas de nada. So you're everywhere. You have teams under you, you're supporting women, you're an entrepreneur, you are, you have your water business as well, which, we can touch upon a little later. You have life coach, like there is so much that, you're putting the energy into, but besides all of that, you're a full-time job mom.
I'm a mom.
You're a mom.
Yeah.
You're a wife. That's already something that takes so much. Like, how do you do it all?
Oh, I don't, first of all.
You're very structured.
One, I will say I recognize the great privilege that I have, that I have an incredible community of support. Where they say it takes a village, it truly does. I have the most supportive husband in the entire world, where he, just like me going to India, he supports my motherhood journey and my business journey as much as if it were his own. My family lives very close, and I am so blessed to say, Mom, like, can you come help me?
Such a blessing, honestly, both of those.
All of it. And so I'm recognize the great privilege that I have. So a large part of how I'm able to do what I'm able to do is the team that I have. And I think that my own frustration in the world is I want to do more. I always want to do more. And I see a lot of other women who are mothers as well doing more than me. And I have to make peace with that. And I get very frustrated with women for not showing the full picture.
Who is doing more than you?
Oh, a lot of people. But
I feel the same way.
They're doing more than me in certain respects, but they're not doing more than me in other. So my children are my priority, and I make that very clear with everyone. So if we're on a Zoom call and my kid runs in, guess who's getting my attention?
Yeah, of course.
The adult can wait. The child,
and it's also such a blessing to be able to draw that boundary and be in a, because not everybody has that. Let's call it privilege, but not everybody has the opportunity to work and be able to say, hey, this is happening and this is how I'm going to deal with it, as a mom, where you take them into consideration. I feel like a lot of people just put them aside as like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we are trained to do without realizing it is to talk about our children as if they are burdens. I'm on a lot of calls with women that have children, and they'll always say, I'm sorry, my daughter's watching TV. I'm sorry, my son's acting a fool right now.
Yeah.
And one of the first things I say to them is, why are you sorry for having children?
Yeah. The most beautiful thing a woman can actually create. Like, why are we sorry about that?
Like, your children are invited. And I think that's a large part of this next chapter is for so long, I bought into that philosophy of my children need to fit into my life. And I kind of had this moment after Jordan, my second daughter, was born, where I had a moment of clarity of my life needs to fit into my choice, and I choose my children. And part of that choice also was the year I gave birth to my daughter, I took a financial hit. I give so much to my children that my business suffered, and I'm okay with that. Some women aren't, and guess what? That's okay too. I make no judgments on how other women want to go about their life, their career goals, their family goals. I think women who choose to be a mom without the career, I love them for that, so long as the choice is in alignment with them. And part of my alignment is the 2 years after I give birth are for my children. And the hard part about being a working mom is finding a flow with it. The idea that there is a way of balancing it is bullshit.
Okay.
I'm just calling it. There is no
I was just about
balance.
to say, probably use balance everything, everyone, but that's just not how it works.
Balance is bullshit. And I think that there's this weird idea that we've been kind of manipulated unintentionally into thinking is that 30% will go to family, 30% will go to yourself, and 30% will go to your business.
It's not realistic.
It does not work that way.
Yeah.
You are water. You are going to have seasons. You're going to have seasons where it's 80% family and maybe 10% for yourself or 15% for yourself and 5% business. And then you're going to have seasons like COVID for me, that season was 75% business, 15% for my family, and 5% for me. And guess what? The paychecks came in and matched that. So it's about honoring the season you're in. And flowing through it.
But like fully diving into this, into that awareness. This is where I'm at. And it doesn't have to stay here either. It will transform into something else.
It's a lot of quick forgiveness. Because what tends to happen when we're in a season where maybe our family or our self-care or whatever it is takes a back seat or a lesser seat is we guilt ourselves. So then you're not actually present. You're not giving the energy to what you said you were going to give the energy to. Because the mental energy of guilt takes away focus, awareness, physical energy from every task that you have assigned. So something that I've really been working on in motherhood is when I'm working, I'm working. If my children run in, of course, welcome them, but I'm working and I'm okay with that right now. That's my time to focus on this. And when I'm practicing my self-care, which that's a whole other topic, that's my time for me. And I'm not going to feel guilty. Because if I'm constantly doing something and guilty for not doing something else, I'm never actually present with what I'm doing.
Yeah. And it just creates so much suffering too, like so much extra. And we were just talking about grief in our pre-podcast session.
The conversation walking through the door.
I actually wish all of that was filmed as well because it's so precious. But we're talking about grief as well. You know, that when you talk about these different feelings of guilt or grief or, going through a breakup or losing someone important to you, I think it's so important to give it the time. To give it the time to grieve and give it the time to feel whatever you need to feel in order to heal. Otherwise, you're just escaping. You're doing exactly the same thing before going to India, before taking your teacher training. Like, it's just a different circumstance, right? But you're doing the same of escaping where you're actually there to feel.
And something I say, you've heard me say this many times over, is feel your feelings, but don't unpack your bags there. Don't change your mailing address to sadness and to happiness and to fear and to grief, because all feelings, just like clouds in the sky, change. So if you start identifying yourself as a feeling, I am sad, I am neurodivergent, I am whatever it is, you're attaching your identity with those things. And so you're limiting.
And you're creating it more and more for yourself.
Exactly, because now it's a part of who you are.
Right.
And the problem with assuming who you are with a feeling is when you stop inevitably feeling that feeling, you're going to search it out. So if you say, I'm depressed, if there's a day that you're happy, you're going to actively look
for things to make you feel depressed. And I've seen it represented in so many people where just that, what you just said. And it's just like, when are you going to just stop it?
And it's true also in the other sense with happiness and joy, because I'm not, here's the thing. I'm not a positive thinker. I'm not all for like radical positivity, because joy and happiness leave just as fast as sorrow and grief. I'm for being present with what you're feeling in the moment. I hope people are on the spectrum a little more towards happiness, because that's what I want for the world, is to feel joy and love. But life is not all butterflies, orgasms, and roses. Like, that'd be great, but if
there wouldn't be...
There's nothing to compare it to.
Yeah, there's nothing, exactly. There's no yin yang. You wouldn't know you were happy.
Exactly.
Because there is actually not point of comparison there.
Exactly. And so when people say, oh, I just need to think more positively, it's kind of like rubbing salt in a wound. Because if your grandma just died, you're not going to go and say, oh, I'm a positive thinker. You need to feel what you're feeling. And you can remember happy moments and have those bits of up level and those joy come through you. But ultimately, the more present you are with what you're feeling, the more you can navigate through. And so that goes back to guilt. If what you need to do, if the task at hand is work, dive fully into work. Because it's very hard to be depressed when you're actively working that hard. When you're fully in the work, immersed into it, joy, depression, anxiety, those feelings don't come up. You're on the task at hand. And then whatever comes up after, you can work through them.
Yeah. I feel so connected to that, because I've been going through a lot. There's so much. And part of the process has been like, hey, like, let me sit down with it. Like, like when my cat was eaten by a coyote not so long ago, like, I still feel it. I miss him so much. But it just felt like my level of grief was so connected to also the level of love that I had, that it just felt like I need to feel this in honor of everything else. Like, just like you're saying with your grandma, like, I need to feel this in honor of what am I going to do? Like, not feel anything? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. But there's obviously, escapism, because you don't want to sit with the hard truth and,
most people
and the understanding.
Most people are unwilling to look in the mirror. And so one of the things I tell clients to do and people to do, and something I practice regularly, is when I'm having a feeling that is overwhelming, when it reaches that level of holy crapola, this is a lot, like I'm white knuckling it right now. Imagine that feeling is a person.
And you hit the person?
You can, if you need to.
What happens
if you need to. Imagine the feeling as a person, and you're going out to dinner, and you're sitting across from them. And it's, okay, grief, let's talk.
Let's have a face-to-face.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Because when you're with me, I get sad. I push people away. I do
Mm-hmm.
this. So what's the lesson? And have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and you can do the same thing with money. My friend Tasha just led a beautiful money mastermind. She's a hypnotherapist, and I absolutely adore her. You were there. It was
Yes.
fantastic. And she says, like, talk to money like you're on a date with it. What are you going to say to it? And
I love that exercise, by the way.
that was so fun.
Yeah.
So fun. And
you just don't know exactly what's going to come up when you see it that way.
Yes. And so the same is true with feelings, because sometimes when you're feeling overwhelmed with it, you need to embody it, feel it in your body, or maybe put it in the body of a physical person. And if you're a visual person, sometimes that image changes. And you can start with anger, and all of a sudden anger has transformed into sorrow, and sorrow has transformed into regret, and regret has transformed into joy, and this conversation changes shape. And so feel your feelings, just don't unpack your bags there. And when you move through the feelings, you find that river of fluid motion, you become less attached to the result of it. And that's really when life just becomes magical.
Yeah.
Kids do it intuitively.
Yeah, they just do it.
a large part of how I teach yoga is I teach people how to be a child again. And to either nourish the inner child that's doing well, heal the child and be there for the child that needed something that they didn't receive, or be silly, be goofy. Children.
Something I love in your class is like, hey, you fell, that's okay.
Yeah.
And I take, that doesn't bother me anymore. Yeah. I used to be that person who's like, oh, the pose is not right, and this and this. And it's just like, you have to laugh about it, you have to also apply some humor and like give you some credit.
I always try to make people laugh in class, which that was another lesson from India is I'm doing my poses. And so we're practicing Ashtanga in the mornings. We had Iyengar in the afternoon and Hatha in the evening, all these different things. But I'm practicing Ashtanga. And I'm in India. It's my first week I'm there. Got my tight pants on, and I've memorized the format, and I've got this. And I'm like, I'm going into my warrior sequence, and my teacher comes up to me. He goes, "Are you in pain?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" "No, I'm strong." And he goes, "You look like you're in pain." And I'm almost like angry.
Yeah,
I'm like, "Why are you saying that?" And he goes,
because you're doing so much, in your mind.
He goes, "Are you happy? Like, do you like yoga?" And I was like, "I love yoga." He goes, "It doesn't look like it."
Oh.
And he said, "Tomorrow at dawn, you're not going to come here." And I was like, am I getting kicked out of yoga school? Like, what's happening? And he goes, "No, you're going to go down to the river, and you're going to do yoga with the group down there." And that's all he said.
Okay.
So the next day comes, I go down to the river, and there's no one wearing what I'm wearing. And I put my skirt on. I'm being respectful of the culture, so I'm not wearing my tight pants and all those types of things. But no one is wearing what I'm wearing. They're just wearing their regular clothes. And they're all by the river, and it's every age and every gender, all right? There's old men and old women and young women and all these things. And they're all set up by the river. No one has a yoga mat. So I'm like, what am I doing? Where did he send me? Am I in the right place? Yeah. And no one spoke English. So I am just standing there. And all of a sudden, someone comes in the center of the circle. It's this old man, comes in the center of the circle. And he goes,
to you?
To everyone. There's 50 people.
Okay.
And he's just laughing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the circle starts laughing.
Okay.
And I'm there like, who dropped acid and let these people out of their house? Like, what is happening right now? And what happens is when people around you are laughing, even if it starts fake, like, ha, 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 it's start laughing.
Yeah.
I start laughing hysterically, crying. I am laughing so hard. The whole session lasts 15 minutes. I feel like I'm going to pee my pants. I'm laughing so hard. And just as quickly as it started, it ended. And everyone walked away.
And I don't know why he sent you there.
He sent me there to laugh.
Yeah.
I, in that moment, realized I hadn't laughed
in so long.
Probably not like that in a year. Mm-hmm. Part of neurodivergence. So I have ADHD. I have a lot of like things with my brain that isn't neurotypical. Mm-hmm. And part of neurodivergence is this thing called masking, where you could drop me anywhere and I would pick up, I would adapt. I
have that tendency.
I would change parts of me.
Yes.
I used to call it my chameleon. Before I had the language, I said I'm a chameleon. Mm-hmm. I can be anywhere. I can be with a CEO that's a billionaire, and I can be with a homeless person on the street. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter. I can be with that. And so part of masking is adapting yourself to fit into a situation. And I had been doing it for so long, not realizing what I was doing. You're not conscious. You're doing it out of self-preservation, because the underlying desire of being a human is to be loved and to be received. Mm-hmm. And so the fear, the other side of that, is to be rejected. Mm-hmm. To be cast away. And so when you are neurodivergent, when you don't meet the expectation mm-hmm. of people, and this starts in childhood, you start to adjust yourself. And sometimes it comes out as lying, and sometimes it comes out as physical changes, changing your hair or how you dress. And for me, it was picking up on the personality I needed to take on mm-hmm. in those situations. And so what had happened is I had been masking my sadness for so long, mm-hmm. my anxiety for so long. No one knew what was happening. No one knew I was suicidal. No one knew any of these things. I couldn't even acknowledge it. Mm-hmm. My teacher picked up on it in the first week. And he said, this chick needs to go down and just laugh her ass off for a bit. And I walked back, and I didn't look in it. There are no mirrors. So I didn't look in a mirror. But when I got back, he goes, you practiced yoga. Aww. And I just gave him the biggest hug, because he saw something in me that I so badly needed that I couldn't see in myself. Mm-hmm. And that's why I tell people, when I went to India, my yoga education mm-hmm. began, because that's the feeling I want people to walk away from my classes, and with my life coaching. That's the feeling I want them to walk away with, is I'm going to put them in uncomfortable situations mm-hmm. to get what they need out of it. And what they need may not be what I'm dictating. Mm-hmm. They might get something completely different out of it, and that's okay. But my job is to just show them the door.
That is such a precious story.
Isn't that fun?
Because it's not only the laughing part, which is mm-hmm. awesome.
Yeah.
And everything that you learn from it, but like, you showing up with your yoga pants, like with all of this, just pragmatic ideas of
who I was supposed to. Yeah.
Like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. This is how you look for this kind of scenarios. Mm-hmm. So all of that in this story just
it shattered.
Yeah. It just shattered. Went off.
Like, that was yoga.
Yeah.
That was yoga.
And that is so beautiful, because it's like, you're just now detaching from mm-hmm. all of this. Well, I don't need any of this. Like, at the end, mm-hmm. you're like masking, like you're saying, you're now masking with, well, this is how I'm supposed to look. And this is how I'm supposed to show up. And let me do my ponytail this mm-hmm. way, because that's yoga for me. And then everything you needed was just...
It's inside you.
Yeah.
And it's funny, because that's when I actually started Rasam yoga. Mm. And people go, well, what is Rasam? Like, that's a cool name. What is it? Thank you. Rasam is just raw authenticity. Mm-hmm. I had masked for so long, right? They say,
you're done with it.
I was done. I was like, when people are themselves, raw, feeling what they're feeling unapologetically, when they are in that state, they are freaking awesome. Mm-hmm. They are awesome mm-hmm. because that is human, just existence. Mm-hmm. Unapologetically yourself.
Yeah.
And so that's when
it takes time to get there, because you've been so manipulated in a way.
Here's what I'll say. It takes time to get back there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Because kids
they're
are
already there.
But what happens with children, think of this, all right? Think of this. A 1-year-old starts crying. What's the first thing people do?
To try to quiet them and don't cry.
Don't cry.
Yeah.
Stop crying.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
We
yes.
teach
We're
our
conditioned that
children
way.
from infancy to ignore what they're feeling.
Yes. So your emotion not valid.
My children are, and I'm guilty of it too. I've been a first-time mom. We don't do everything right, okay? And what I will say is my children are loud. They feel their feelings. My older daughter, River, she has some of the strongest feelings.
Let's make this official. Become part of this community. If you feel called to it, hit the subscribe button, like, and share with someone you love. And feel free to leave any comments, questions, or suggestions below. Y si estás viendo en otro idioma, te invito a activar los subtítulos para que no te pierdas de nada.
Man, that's when my yoga practice begins. When she's in her feelings and I'm not trying to change them.
It's a challenge for you too.
That's my yoga. That's my karma yoga. Like I need to support her navigating through whatever she's feeling. And I find that when you meet adults who are really good at identifying their feelings, it's because they had parents who let them feel what they were feeling.
Yeah.
Who let them be loud and crazy and sad and artistic. And like, if you see my kids out in the world, please know I'm not dressing them. I am not
choice.
This is them. Like, this is them dressing themselves.
Wow, cool.
But it's that self-expression. And it's funny because both of my kids wear a uniform, and I'm so grateful for that. So when they go to school, that's when they wear their uniform. You have to behave in a certain way. There's certain social expectations. But when they're with me, the goal is for them to be who they are wholeheartedly. And so I always tell people is Rasam, that radical authenticity, you have it in you. You have it in you. You've just been conditioned out of it.
Yeah.
You've been made to be afraid of what you're feeling. And so it's a return to origin. It's a return to source.
The way it's been for me, what you're saying is like I've had to like relearn.
Yeah.
Or like what you're saying, it's just unlearn. Like unlearn.
Yeah.
That's actually the word. It's unlearn.
To relearn.
To relearn now from this place of authenticity.
Like, what was the biggest moment for you of unlearning? Because it's different for everyone.
Well, talking about now that we're talking about teacher trainings, my teacher training, and I've gone through many different things where you have to unlearn so many times and just kind of go back up repeats. And, you know, and go again. And why is it happening again? You look inwards. It's like, well, something in me. But teacher training was a constant slap on the face. That's what it was. My teacher training was...
If you don't cry in teacher training, you're not doing it right.
But it was beyond crying. It was beyond. I also got there with no expectation. My first sentence, I'm not here to be a teacher. You know, like that first, interaction with the group.
Oh yeah.
Hi, I'm Grecia. I'm not here to be a teacher, everybody. Like I'm
different than
learn. I'm here just to learn, and it's just for myself. 2 months in.
How'd that work out for you?
That's what it was. It was a constant slap on the face because you're also going through a process of awakening while you're doing all of this. And it just felt so raw in so many moments. And then certain meditations would bring certain things that you just don't know about. And then you take it out of the room and you start seeing, like, I remember having a moment during my teacher training where I knew I shouldn't have gone to that party, but you know, I'm
old
there.
Habits die hard.
Old habits. This is what I know. This is what my body knows. This is the people that I know. Let me go back to that. So I go there, and I had this moment, like in the middle of the dance floor, and it was like this whole moment of like clarity, and it was very ephemeral, but it was very powerful. And it's just like this, like clarity, and I'm in the middle of a lot of people, and I start looking at them, and I'm like, what am I doing here? what have I been doing? And I start getting a panic attack in the middle of it. And I'm just like, what am I doing here? Like, this is not like, just like glimpses of awakening and just glimpses of your old self now in the fighting of your new self. And, you know, and it was that moment of like, I'm not supposed to be here. What am I doing? What have I been doing to my body? Like, it was a total breakdown. I'm like, I need to go. I can't have another light, another beat, another. Like, I don't want to see anything else. I need to go home. And it was like in the middle of a festival, like this thing is like, everyone's like, Grecia, we're not going home. And I'm like, I'm going home. Like, I don't know what you're doing. You're free to do whatever you want. I'm going home. But it was, you know, I've been coming from like a lifestyle where that is just so normal and I have so much fun and, you know, all of that. But you know, and during your training, then I start now realizing things and seeing them differently.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's different for everyone, you know, like everyone has a unique experience. Some people have these big awakenings and other people, it's a very gradual and slow one. And some people aren't ready.
Yeah.
And what I find though, is once you wake up, it's very hard to go back to sleep.
It's just almost impossible.
It's almost
impossible.
I've seen it.
But again, habits can come back.
Exactly.
And, you know.
Habits come back, and I've seen the process of going back to sleep is really a process of not knowing how to take the next step. And it's easier sometimes to go back to the familiar, even when we know better. Like they say, when we know better, we do better. No, when we know better, we have a choice. And some people choose to do better. And some people choose to say, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
And both are valid.
Yeah, exactly. Both are valid. And well, my teacher training was like that. It was a constant choice.
Yeah, every day.
That's what it was, a constant choice. Even the 4 a.m. calls for the meditation, like it's a constant choice that you make.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Like it was a slap on the face. Now, fast forward to the ending of it. I'm shining, thriving. I'm like, I'm going to become the best teacher in the world. Like my life has transformed in so many ways at that point.
Yeah.
But throughout the whole process, it was just a very muddy water, very like muddy place, you know, because you are again unlearning and relearning now based on who you want to be, 100%. Right? And
you're planting the seeds to see what grows.
Yeah.
And I think that I've led so many teacher trainings, and part of how I lead teacher trainings now in all educational experiences is I actually don't want people to have the experience that I had the first time. Because
it could scare you, I guess. Scare you away.
It could scare you, but my teacher caused a lot of hurt to me without realizing it. And you have to remember that a lot of people who get into the professions that they're really good at got into it because they needed the most help with it.
Yeah.
So a lot of yoga teachers, and I've seen this for 15 years now, that are teaching have a lot of work left to do. That maybe ego is walking in front or walking behind. And it's the teacher that I went through my teacher training with really hurt. Because I'm a recovered perfectionist. I'm not doing that anymore, but during that time of my life, I was in it. That was the season I was in, was perfectionism. So I memorized the entire script of teaching. I actually recorded her class and memorized it. And so when we went to our test out, remember there's 30 people in the room. This other people, and it's the boss is here and all the other teachers are here. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to do this perfectly. And so I'm testing out, and I nailed it. I got every word right.
Yeah.
I got every cue right. And her feedback to me was, you sound like a flight attendant.
Wow. I mean, I can understand why, because
I was saying the words.
Yeah.
I was saying the cues, but it wasn't me. It was me repeating. That hit me so hard because I was still masking then.
Yeah. And you've put so much effort.
So much effort. This was months of effort and daily practice and memorization and sequencing and all these things and physical changes. I had lost 60 pounds and I did everything I was supposed to do. And I remember when she said it, I was like this. I was like, I nailed it.
Yeah.
And she goes, you sound like a flight attendant.
Oh my gosh.
You're not ready yet. And I instantly started crying. I ran out of the room into the bathroom and
it would have been the same.
Sobbed.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about like teacher training as an experience, it's like that was a tough lesson, but it was the first seed of authenticity and what that really looks like. And one of the quotes that I found very quickly after that was by Dita Von Teese, who's a burlesque dancer. She's gorgeous. And she said, you can be the juiciest, ripest, most delicious peach in the world, and you're still going to find someone who hates peaches.
Yeah, you don't have to, you're never going to be perfect for everybody.
You can't be. And
you can't be,
when people come to my class, I'm like, look, try it 3 times. And same with my coaching, like try it 3 times. The first time it's probably going to be shocking. The second time you're going to start to figure it out. The third time you're ready to make a decision if I'm the right person for you, if I'm the right teacher for you, if I'm the right life coach for you, if I'm the right friend for you. Just because we hang out once doesn't mean you're obligated to be with me or to say that I hate you off the bat. It's let the lesson unfold. So I abide by that. And I even do that with my kids. You have to try the food 3 times before you decide if
this is how it is. These are different perfectionism.
Exactly.
It's a different way of perfectionism.
Exactly. We're going to try it 3 times. And it's funny because I actually practice it with myself of if I go to a teacher's class and I'm like, ooh, I don't like that.
I do this.
I will force myself to go back 2 more times to decide if I was right the first time or if maybe I was having a bad day.
Yes.
Maybe it was more me and less them.
Absolutely.
So,
yes. Look, I know we don't have much time left, which I feel like we're just scratching the surface of everything. So it feels like so crazy because I'm connected with all of that. I remember my first teaching experience and I was just like that. It had to be by the book. And I've been, like not training, but also going with like the best of Kundalini. And I've been doing, there is this pressure on me of like, well, now I'm with Life Force Academy. So now if they come to me, like I have a standard. Like I need to present myself like I know what I'm doing. And that first class, like mine official, like my own company and everything. It sucked. I came back home and I was like just so disappointed. But again, the script was right. But it was the script of someone else. It was someone else's script. And I wanted, because, like he's my friend and I love his class and I experienced so much in his classes. So I wanted to provide that kind of same experience. Like, well, this is what you say, this is how you say, this is the timing. So I have this idea of how it's supposed to be, but nothing was coming from the heart. So that was my first lesson there as a teacher. So it's just like, okay, you can't teach from someone else's experience. You can only teach from your own. So how am I adapting those things, right? So that's how I connect to that story so much. Like we're so alike in so many ways. I'm also very perfectionist. I'm also, so it's a constant inner work, to be able to let go and like, and, be there fully present when you need to be there. So it's a constant inner work, but I do want an extra 5 minutes.
We're going over.
Because I want to talk about water.
Yes.
Just like briefly, because it's so important. And I know you're such an advocate for this. And it's just such a healing thing. And it's just so important in so many ways. What do you do with water exactly?
We'll drink it, obviously. But when I went through all of my yoga stuff, I was working at Equinox and I met someone named Colton and he was a personal trainer. Love him dearly. And he had been talking to me about this water for a really long time. And I remember my ego was walking in front because I was getting my nutrition information. I was like, I don't need your bougie water. Like, I know about water. I don't need that. And it took about 6 years of research and education for me to actually understand or understand what this was. And when I got this machine, it changed my life because not only did it open up a door to coaching that I had never received before, I had done a lot of education. I had never gotten business education and coaching education in that respect. So it opened the door to that, but it also opened the door to a level of healing that I was kind of dehydrated. Most people are. So it's not about quantity when it comes to water, it's about quality. So a lot of people are like, you need to drink a gallon a day, or you need to drink half your body weight in ounces, or there's a lot of information, a lot of opinions out there on how much water we should be drinking. And what I learned through this water, and this is electrolyzed reduced water. That's the scientific name of it. So molecular hydrogen, it's ionized, it's filtered, all this beautiful stuff, is you don't have to drink this exuberant amount. It's about how your body receives it.
Right.
So you absorb this water about 8 times better than any other water you can find. Even if you go to like a fancy place and have them pour water that's been sound bath teal. I love that. Love that. I love what they're doing, but it's a lot more simple.
Yeah.
And so what I do with this is this one machine not only creates the drinking water that got rid of my autoimmune issue. So my brain fog went away, joint pain went away, gut inflammation went away, my skin got really good, but it also started to heal me in ways I didn't realize. Because when we're drinking chlorine or fluoride or microplastics, we have this level of inflammation in our body that we're not aware of. And it's not until you get it out of your body that you really understand how good you're supposed to feel as a human.
You don't have the point of comparison until you actually feel it. It's like, oh, this is how I was supposed to be feeling. I rave about this water. I'm like, here's your every time Rigo can say, every time water, here's your 9.5.
We have this. We're good to
here's
go.
Your 9.5. And but I definitely felt a change.
Yeah.
There's a process of detox as well. There is a process of detox now for your body to get rid of everything that you've been giving it. To now integrate this. I realize that I definitely feel way more hydrated. Well, I feel hydrated. Let's just say that.
Most people feel hydrated. They're I always say Americans have really expensive pee. Let's put it that way. That's the best way I can put it. We take a lot of supplements, we buy a lot of water, but we're not absorbing
any of it.
So have you ever read on like a vitamin C pack how it says 300% your daily value? You're not absorbing all 300%. You're absorbing a very small amount. When you have the right water, you start supercharging that absorption because your body's able to do what it's designed to do. Your body's designed to heal. Fluid pushes fluid. So if you have bloating, if you have inflammation, if you have water retention, you need the right water, the right fluid to push it through you so the body can heal. And I became a super fan of this during COVID because the machine, it doesn't just make drinking waters, which is fantastic. It makes a water for your skin. It makes a veggie wash. It makes something called hypochlorous acid, which is a non-toxic sanitizer. Your body actually produces this when white blood cells are activated. It's really freaking cool. Hospitals have been using it for decades, but during COVID, I became the super fan because a bottle of Purell, like the sanitizer, was going for like $50 on Amazon. People were gouging the prices like crazy. And I remember being so pissed off that I was like, well, I have this machine that makes a sanitizer for free. I started filling up gallons and giving it away to people. And I was like, I can really help people with this. This is awesome.
Dani has brought a lot of water to me.
I have. Just happily to do so, because when I share this water with people, even if they're just mildly curious, I'm excited for the transformation that they're going to. Because sometimes it's as simple as they just sleep really well and they haven't been able to sleep for a long time. And other times it's these huge transformations of, I have had this one woman that has had chronic acid reflux for 25 years. She couldn't have coffee. Loved coffee. So she was like, I'm just going to try the water and see how it goes. Within a week, all of her reflux was gone.
Wow.
And it makes sense. Like
exactly. It makes sense. It's just crazy how this information is not more out there.
Yeah.
That's just a little crazy.
95% of the world population has no idea that this exists. And the problem with the internet is there's rabbit holes in either direction.
Yeah.
So there's people who have had great experiences, and then there's people who are like, oh, I call them my skeptical Susans. Oh, I love them. I was a skeptical Susan for 6 years. I was like, no. And it wasn't until I really found the research articles and heard the testimonials and
tried it for yourself.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the most important part.
Exactly. Yeah. And I watched my mom's arthritis go away. I watched my dad's gout go away. I watched my brother when he got back from the Navy and was urinating blood because the ships have metal touching their water. It took him 5 months to fully detox. My brother's skin was wrecked from this. His kidneys were hurting. His liver was hurting. Not from drugs or alcohol or anything, but because of the water on the ship he was stuck on. And so when I'm watching everyone I love go through these huge transformations, I'm like, my dharma, my mission is to spread this information to help as many people as I can. Yeah. So that's where I'm at. And anyone who wants
I'm someone that you've helped in so many ways. Many ways. Obviously, I love the water.
It's the best.
But, there's just so much not enough information out there, even though full circle moment, because we started talking about water.
Yeah.
In our bodies, how we move like water, But technically, yes, we are 99.9% water. So how is this information not out there? It just bothers me a little bit. But I also think there's a huge transition right now. Like we are now getting into a place where people want to learn more, where people want to be more healthy, where, everybody is doing their own kind of research instead of being just a follower of what we've been told.
Yeah.
So that's important now, mostly for this. So anyone who wants water, Dani, Dani's your girl.
Let me know. Mention it in the comments. We'll get you some. I can usually get people to try it for free. Like it's the only company in the world that will actually let you do a trial before. If you call any other company that says they're like this, they don't do a free trial.
Yeah.
No, there's no way. And so that's one of the things I love about this company is very much in the body and in alignment with integrity of we want you to see if this is a right fit before
you make that choice. Yes. I love that.
It's my favorite.
Yeah. It's another way of doing yoga.
It is.
It really is.
I found it through yoga. And so what's great is sometimes people are my clients for health coaching, for breath work, for yoga, and they make their way here. And sometimes it's just other people around hear me talking about it and they're like, well, I want to try. Come on board. Let's do it. But it's another avenue of healing. And when I think about like the 3 most important things for people to heal and to transform their life, one is sleep. You need to have good quality sleep. Yeah. Because that will make, it doesn't matter what your life is like outside of that. If you're not sleeping, it can derail everything. The second is the thoughts you think. Because if that's not right, that'll cause everything to go out of alignment. And the third is how you nourish your body. That's physical exercise. That's what you're consuming. And so many people are missing a component. And for radical transformation, if you get all 3 of those boxes checked, you become a different person. Yeah. When you sleep well, when you think well, when you eat well and move well, you transform. You become limitless. And that's what I like for is this is a way of physically opening themselves up so their body can do what it was designed to do.
I love it.
I love you so much.
On that note, I think you're one of the most limitless women I know.
I love you.
I love that. I more than, there's inspiration, but there are certain people that just allow you to just by being themselves and being radical, authentically radical, then that's, it allows you to be that for yourself.
Yeah.
And you create that. You do that. And just to hear your story, to know, I know about panic attacks. I've also had so many episodes in life where it's just a constant panic attack after another, in just so many ways where you never know what's behind what you see now. Like when you see that strong woman that's now killing in, that's now embracing herself fully, and it's now limitless. There is a lot of work that was put, that's behind everything that happened. And you've done that.
Thank you.
And I just love that you came here and we're sharing this space. I've been wanting this for a very long time. I'm just very happy. I wish you the best in everything you do, even if you keep pivoting. I know it's just going to be always the right choice. And I'm going to keep following around.
Yes, done.
I'm going to be that person.
I'll save the seat for you.
So yes, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story.
Absolutely.
I think that's so important, And I feel so happy. I hope you all too. Thank you for listening, watching, and we'll see you in another episode of Infinite Multiverse. Bye.